Hello, Brandy. Welcome to the new mid.
Hi, Michelle.
I'm so glad to have you here and talk about real estate because we know the market is hot, hot, hot. So, what is making the real estate market so hot right now?
It is. And first, Michelle, I honestly just want to say how honored I am to be on your show right now. I listen to you, I watch you all the time. I'm just very excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me. Um, Jumping in back to your question of the market being hot, it is right now super, super hot. It's one of the hottest markets we've seen actually in several years. Last couple of years have been pretty strong, but I think what's happening right now is, inventory is really low. There aren't very many homes for sale on the market, but there's still a lot of buyers out there. So what's happening is, buyers are kind of scrambling for the houses. We put one up for sale, and provided we've done everything properly, we're getting 10, 12 or more offers, within the first 48 hours. So it's really, really intense right now in that regard.
That's great. I mean, that's a dream for a seller to have multiple offers like that.
hmm
So, what do you think is important to if you want to buy or sell your house right now? What do you think are the most important things that someone can do for that?
I would say if you're somebody that wants to sell your home, make sure, first of all, that you have a really good agent on your side. It's one thing to make sure that the house looks good, but it's another thing to know how to navigate this type of environment. Just because we're seeing multiple offers doesn't necessarily mean that you want to price your house to a really high level. There's a lot of strategy involved. So I definitely recommend, if you're a seller and if you're a buyer, have a really good strategy session with your agent, especially if you're a buyer right now, just because, think about it. If you find a house that you love and you're going up against 10 or 12 other people for that same house, you really want to make sure you have the best chance of winning it. So that, I would say, is probably going to be the most important thing.
How do you figure out if you know you have a good agent? Like, what makes a good agent, would you say?
Well, let's see here. So, a good agent is really going to be somebody who pays very close attention to every little detail and honestly just does everything they can to make sure that their client has the best possible outcome. So, a good agent communicates well, they communicate often, they always go one step further just to make sure the client has an amazing experience. And like I said before, a good agent is really a good strategist because, real estate is not just really, fluffing pillows and taking pictures. There's so much more to it, especially right now, with how intense this market has been the past month. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, you really need to have a good strategist on your side. So I would say that. And the other thing that I would add is really to make sure that you have a good relationship with your agent. You want to make sure that you feel comfortable and confident around this person. This is a relationship that's going to require a lot of trust. And sometimes there's hard conversations to be had. So you really need to make sure that you're comfortable, you vibe well with your agent, because if there's any disconnect there, it could be difficult throughout the process.
And they help you figure out the value of your house if you want to sell it, correct? And
Definitely.
and
Yep.
what
So there's a
goes
couple
into
different ways you
figuring
can
that
get
out?
the value. One way, and this is something that I do on occasion when there's not enough data to really give us a strong, value, we can always go ahead and get a pre-listing appraisal, have an appraiser come out to the house. That's the exact value. You can't really argue with it. And then the other way is really to sit down with your agent and do what we call a comparative market analysis. I don't ever recommend going to any of those online websites where you go and you type in your address and it just tells you what value it is. That's absurd. In my opinion, they're never accurate. Maybe 1 out of 100 is correct. And the reason for that is those websites just use kind of general algorithms and take averages from the area. They're not considering the age of your house necessarily. They're not considering updates you may have done. How does this website know that you put granite in your kitchen, or that you just refinished your floors, or that you just put a new roof on the house? There's all those things that you have to think about. And then an agent is also going to look at not only what recent homes as similar to yours that have sold, what their prices are, but they're going to make adjustments based on differences between your house and those homes, the amount of land that you have. They're also going to take into consideration market conditions. So knowing the value is one thing, but knowing what your competition is doing and what the buyers are doing is a completely different thing. And again, this just goes back to that same strategy conversation that you need to have with your agent. So, but yes, that's exactly how we're going to go about getting the value of the house for sure, because you want the value to appease the appraisers once you go under contract, but you also want to know what is going to be the best price to list your house at to get the most amount of money. And that goes back to your strategy. You don't always just want to list it for exactly the number that you think it's worth. There's a little bit more to it than that.
So when you're interviewing an agent, what are questions that you should ask the agents, and how many agents should you interview?
Well, I would say interview as many as you need to until you feel comfortable. Once you have the confidence that the agent that you're speaking to is going to work well with you, communicate well with you, you trust this person, you believe that they have the expertise that you need in your market. And honestly, every market is different from county to county. It changes from neighborhood to neighborhood. It can change. So yeah, I would say just really make sure that you are comfortable with that person. Questions you should definitely ask them are going to be how many homes have they sold? I would ask right now within the last month. This is a completely unprecedented time, and a lot of agents out there are struggling to figure out how to navigate this. So I would make sure that you have an agent that has been successful, at least within this last month, with the way that we're doing everything differently. And then I would also want to make sure that you ask them how much time they spend doing real estate. There's a lot of part-time agents out there, and honestly, when you're trying to sell your house, it's a very big deal. It's a very big transaction. It's a lot of money involved. So you want somebody that is going to be able to devote as much of their time as possible to making sure that your transaction is taken care of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. No, that's great. Well,
Mhm.
you know what you mentioned during this unprecedented time, how has real estate sort of changed and evolved with the pandemic?
Well, it's changed in a few ways. So one way is how the market has been. Part of the reason why it's been so hot actually is so many people removed themselves from the market. I know that kind of sounds counterintuitive, but real estate, it's all about supply and demand. So what happened when this pandemic started is a lot of people backed out of the market. They didn't want to move, they couldn't move for whatever reason, or they just didn't feel comfortable having people in the house or going out, and that's very common. We're seeing that right now. But what happened was buyers and sellers backed out of the market in equal proportions. So even though there are far fewer, homes on the market and fewer transactions are happening, it's still very intense. And we call it a strong market because supply is low, demand is high, and there's kind of this frenzy that's going on. So that's one way that the pandemic has affected real estate. Another way is that interest rates have continued to plummet, which is amazing. I thought at the beginning of the year that they were the lowest I'd ever seen. We're seeing like 2.75% closing all over the place right now, which is ridiculously low. And then on the showing side of things, we're doing a lot more things virtual. We're doing, our team has always done this, but 3D imagery, 3D videos, fly-through videos. We're doing it where an agent might take a video and send that to their clients until the client picks the one they love. Then they go see that in person. We are taking every precaution necessary as far as, protection is concerned. So we've got gloves, we've got shoe coverings, we've got hand sanitizer, we've got masks, we've got everything anyone could possibly need to really protect themselves. So if they have to walk through another person's house, or you have to have other people walking through your house, we're really making sure that, it's very, very safe, at least as much as we can.
Well, it's also more selective, correct? I mean, people are sort of deciding, okay, yes, I'm definitely interested in that house, so I will go see it instead of just like, oh, I want to go see a bunch of houses. It seems like
Yep,
they'll
very,
probably be,
very true.
yeah, so to minimize the exposure.
Yeah, and that also comes back, to having a good agent that understands what you're looking for. One thing I never recommend is jumping around and having, multiple different agents looking for properties for you if you're a buyer, because, part of your relationship with your buyer's agent is going to be making sure that they really understand, your lifestyle, your needs, what you're doing, and what you're looking for. And as your agent sees your preferences throughout your showings, they are able to kind of hone in a little bit better and give you better value. So you know that that person understands you. They're sending you homes that are most likely going to fit what you need out of what's available. And it's just a better, more specific process.
Isn't it also important that you have an active agent? Because a lot of times they'll find out about houses before they go on the market. Isn't that
Mm-hmm.
correct?
That's very true. I've got a secret little list over here in my little drawer that has at least 20 properties that are not on the market, but I know for sure the sellers want to sell. And we're seeing that a lot too. That's another difference that I didn't mention is we're seeing a lot of people that want to sell, but they're almost afraid to go on the market because of the pandemic. They don't want anyone coming through their house. They're afraid of a number of different things. So it's definitely good to have an agent that is really plugged in to all the other agents around, because we all network and communicate to each other. I have a little group on Facebook. I can put one post in if I'm looking for something, and 20 or 30 agents are going to give me back something that's going to lead me to what I want. So it's very important to have an agent that is well connected.
That is great. Okay, so you have your superstar agent
Mm-hmm.
and you want to sell your house. How do you get it ready?
The age-old question. How do I prep my house to sell? Okay, so there are lots of different things that a seller should do, and I won't go through the entire list, but the most basic level things, and I think also the most important things, are going to be, first of all, cleanliness, of course, especially now more than ever. Buyers don't just want to see a clean house, they want a sanitized house. So they want to know that everything is perfectly clean. And so that's going to come down to being really, really detailed when you are doing your cleaning. I actually send a professional cleaning crew through my listings to make sure that it's done the way that I want. But if, the homeowner wants to do it themselves, just get very detailed. Bring out your old toothbrush, scrub in the little nooks and crannies. Baseboards are important. No dust. We want to see in between the blinds, clean those. Top of the fan, clean that. Um, Honestly, every little thing that you can get clean so that it feels like no one has ever lived in the home, that's what buyers are looking for right now. On top of that, I would say we really want to declutter, of course. And if you're moving anyway, I just say, pitch the stuff you're getting rid of and pack the stuff that you don't need right now. Just get as much decluttered as possible. The less things that we have out are the less distractions we have, and the easier it is for a buyer to visualize their own self in the home. And so that's the other thing, is buyers really want to visualize their life, their world inside this house. That's the best thing for them. So another thing I'm going to recommend is removing anything that would really be a distraction. So nothing too controversial, remove anything political, especially right now. Our, family photos, sometimes I recommend removing, religious stuff, educational, even sports memorabilia. Actually, believe it or not, I did have a client who was a Redskins fan, and they walked into a Cowboys fan's house. And wouldn't you know, the reason they did not buy the house was all the Cowboys memorabilia, because that sports fanship is so strong in some people. So I even recommend getting rid of excessive memorabilia. You don't have to get rid of everything, but if you have an entire room that's dedicated to one team, I recommend pulling most of that stuff out.
That's pretty funny. Oh my gosh. Well, and do you have to, are there certain repairs that you need to make sure you get done, or do you go through that with your agent?
I'm going through that with your agent. Some things, you know, most people understand that if you're buying a home that someone's lived in before, it's not going to be brand new. And even in brand new homes, there's, minor things that we find. I do recommend touching up things. If you know there's, like a leak or a light bulb that's out, minor repair type stuff, definitely make sure that all those things are in good order. I actually typically give my clients, like a $500 credit towards any type of minor repairs. So if we need things like that to be done and we need a handyman to come over, we can come take care of that. If your house needs major repairs, then that's a different conversation, and definitely just consult with your agent about what your right course of action is going to be, because what I don't want to see is a client dumping a whole bunch of money into their house if it's not going to come back to them on their return, or if it's not going to help them sell at the value that we want to get for them.
That's great. So that's if you want to sell your house. Now, if you want to buy a house, if you're a buyer, what do you need to do to get ready to buy a house?
To get ready to buy a house, the first person still, you need to find yourself as a really good agent that you trust and communicate well with, always. They're going to help you navigate the process, especially if you're a first-time buyer, or even if you're not a first-time. I mean, times have changed over the last 20 years. It's different now than it used to be. So make sure that you have a good understanding of the process. Agent's going to take you through and explain how that works. And they're also going to be able to get you in touch with a lender that they also trust, that they know are going to take good care of you, because the lender is going to help you figure out all the money aspect of it, how much your mortgage payment's going to be, how much money, if any, you need to save up to bring to the table as a down payment. There's a lot of ways to get down payments covered right now, so you may not have to come up with as much as you want. I recommend having those two conversations honestly as soon as possible. Even if you're not thinking of buying for a year or more, have the conversation now, because then you can put your plan together for over the next 12 months or however long it's going to be, to make sure that when you do get to the point of going out to actually make the transaction happen, that you're fully prepared and you don't have any, surprises.
Yes, we don't like surprises.
Yeah.
Those are not fun.
Right.
If somebody is considering maybe becoming an agent, what would you recommend they do? What steps would you take for that?
Well, honestly, the good thing about real estate is just about anybody can do it. And it doesn't matter what stage of your life you're in, what education level you have, as long as you have a strong work ethic, strong moral ethics, and, motivation, I can teach you the rest. You know what I mean? So there's training that exists, as long as you're either joining a team or joining a brokerage that has strong support systems for you, good training, good everything, then as long as you do that, you're set up for success, and you should be successful as long as you have the right mentors and the right motivation. Real estate is definitely, can be tough, but I think as long as you're dedicated and you really want to succeed, you're going to do as well as you want to.
That's great. So when you get into real estate, though, becoming an agent, there is a bit of commitment, financial commitment.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain things you need to do, and you need to join a brokerage, correct?
Yep, you do need to join a brokerage. Every real estate agent must be associated with a broker. That's just the law. That's a rule. So the broker is going to, it's good to meet with them or meet with a team leader. We're actually starting our team, launching in a couple of weeks. We officially have everything ready to go. So,
congratulations. What's your team called?
We are the Lifestyle Homes Group at Keller Williams Realty Center, and we are super, super excited. I am actually bringing a couple agents on, hopefully within the next 30 days. We've identified one. We have 2 or 3 that are set up, that are kind of exploring the process, and we're going to decide who's going to be the best fit. And then if anybody listening is interested in, thinking about joining real estate, definitely reach out to me. I'm going to plug myself here real quick, but we're definitely looking for talent. We're looking for motivated people. There's a lot of people getting out of real estate right now, and so it's actually a great time to get in.
So what can you expect? What do you expect becoming a realtor? What do you have to invest?
Well, you do need to invest a little bit of time, more than a little bit of time up front. So you have to get your license. That's normally the first thing that we recommend. It's a 60-hour course. It can be done, in about 2 weeks if you dedicate your time as you would a full-time job. just kind of go through the class. It's pretty easy if you stick with it and just stay focused and do the activities. So then you do that. That class is, I want to say, about $250. Then the license itself, you do have to get fingerprints done. When you sign up with your brokerage, they will kind of lay out what that looks like. We do have fees that we have to pay to the Association of Realtors, whichever association you're joining, to be a part of the Realtors MLS system where we have all of our official data. That is a sign up as well. And then to be able to show properties, there is a technology that you have to have there too. So altogether, there's a little bit of an expense, and real estate is a commission-based business. So you have to be prepared to give yourself a little bit of time. I would say anywhere from 1 to 3 months before you might see that first commission check, because you have to give yourself time not only to learn a lot about what you're doing, you also need to find your first client or two, and then their process, buying or selling a home, could be 1 to 2 months before you get to the closing table. And so, as long as you're prepared and have the expectation, you can really set yourself up in a right way. And then throughout the rest of the year, if you continue building that business, it just kind of snowballs and grows into a bigger entity.
That's great. Now, you talked about commission. Could you explain to us what a commission is and how it breaks down?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So commissions are, well, I should say almost always negotiable. I do think there's a little bit of a misconception out there sometimes about what happens to this money or where it goes or how it's earned. So what I'll tell you is real estate fees are not earned until the home is sold. That's cash in the seller's hand, keys in the buyer's hand, everyone is moving. So here's how they work. So in our market, the seller of a home hires a listing agent. Okay. Now, when they're hiring that listing agent, they're also hiring that agent's brokerage. So if you were going to hire someone from my team, from the Lifestyle Homes Group, you would also be hiring Keller Williams as a brokerage, which is great because we're a huge brokerage and we have lots of agents, lots of support. So you're hiring your agent and your brokerage. From that amount that you've agreed on with your listing brokerage, that broker is then going to offer a portion of that commission to a buyer's agent that brings a successful transaction with a qualified buyer, if that makes sense. So that buyer's agent is also going to have a broker. We talked about having to be associated with brokers previously. So essentially that total fee that the seller is providing to their listing broker ends up being divided at least 4 times, sometimes more. So, in order to do—
Is it easier to sort of, if we use numbers, like just throw out 6% seems to be the average. So it would be 3% for the buyer's broker and 3% for the seller's broker. Is that correct?
Yep, that's a very good example. So let's use that 6%. So then we're splitting it between the two, and then so that's 3 on each side, and then that 3% is being split then between the agent and their broker. So now we're at like a 1.5% that actually goes to the agent, and that's before they pay Uncle Sam. So it really does take an army and a lot of hours and resources from everybody involved to really do a proper real estate transaction the right way. So when we look at the big picture, I think it's all really very reasonable.
Question for you about Uncle Sam. Does Uncle Sam tax you on the full 3% or the 1.5%? Just curious, or do you know?
Uncle Sam taxes you on the— I cannot speak today. Uncle Sam taxes you on the full amount.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, there you go. But
Yep.
it's really great when you have a team, though, and it's a great career if you're in midlife and you're looking
Yep.
to do something different. I mean, it's one of those careers that you can easily get into. But you need to have a network too, correct?
You need to have a network. And if you don't have one, so we've had agents that have moved to Maryland from California, from Colorado, from wherever, and they move here and they don't have a huge network because they haven't grown up here, right? But there are ways to build that network quickly. And that just comes down to, like I said before, having the right support system and having the right, group of people around you helping you learn what you need and kind of pointing you in the right direction. If you have that, you should be fine.
That's
We've had
great.
agents be successful that grew up in this area and have a huge network, and we've had agents be successful that were brand new to town, and in their first year they still were able to close on 20 homes. So it's definitely possible.
Well, it seems like real estate is a hot market to buy, sell, or become an agent.
Yep, yep, all the things.
That is so great. So, Brandy, I asked people two questions before at the end of the interview, and the first
Okay.
question is, what piece of advice would you give your younger self?
Ooh, my younger self. Well, let's see. I would tell myself to probably get into real estate sooner. But really, I guess I would tell myself to not be afraid to take the leap of faith. I think that a lot of people, including myself when I was much younger, when we have a thing that we're comfortable with, like a place of employment, for example, anytime we're thinking about changing that or doing something new, or especially taking a leap into an industry that isn't a base salary where you have that consistent income, can be very scary. But they always say if you're terrified and you're excited at the same time, then you're ready. And I would say don't ever let fear hold you back from taking that leap, because you have to believe in yourself deep down, and if you don't, you're never going to grow. So do it, whatever it is my advice.
That is awesome. Well, this sort of leads into the next question. How do you get started? Like what energy, how do you suggest people just get off the couch and get started
Well,
with
I
whatever it
would
is they're trying to do?
I would definitely suggest starting with a powerful morning routine. This is something that you taught me, actually. Making sure that you're consistent in your mornings, giving yourself the time that you need, getting up early enough. If it's exercising in the morning, put your feet on the ground, go do a little exercising, take a shower, get ready for your day, set yourself up for that success. That's going to catapult your energy automatically. And then start communicating with other people who are successful doing whatever it is that you want to do. And, we're in a pandemic, so it's not like we can all go meet each other out in person right now, but, look at us. We're communicating perfectly fine, and we're on a virtual platform here. There's new apps, like, what's that app? House Party, where everybody can just come in at the same time and talk to each other. There's so much stuff like that. And there's a lot of people out there collaborating right now, and everybody wants to share their knowledge, especially in my industry. Someone asked a question and 50 agents are ready to jump in and give their expertise. So I would say powerful morning routine, and get out there, communicate, spend as much time as you can virtually or in person with people that are doing what you want to do, and you should naturally follow suit.
I love that. Well, Brandy, thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you?
They can call me. My phone number is 240-361-7745. My email is going to be brandydillon@kw.com. They can call my broker's office. That number is 240-309-6000. And certainly, look us up on Facebook. I'm on there as Brandi Dillon Realtor right now. However, in 2 weeks, we're officially launching our new branding for the Lifestyle Homes Group. And so that's all going to be switched. So if you're listening to this and it's 2 weeks down the road, you're looking for Lifestyle Homes Group over at Keller Williams.
Well, that is so great. Thank you so much, Brandy, for all this wonderful advice and information.
My pleasure, girl.